Welcome to the latest edition of the Dynamic Political Centrism podcast, hosted by Alan Steinberg, produced by Dr. Yonatan Yoni Yaris Sadak. Our honored guest, the Honorable DiFrancesco, the 51st Governor of the state of New Jersey, and his daughter, Tracy DiFrancesco, the Chair of the Somerset Republican Committee.
Good evening and welcome. I am Alan Steinberg, the voice of the podcast, Dynamic Political Centrism. And tonight we have a show which I can best label as prestigious because we have two of the key personalities of New Jersey politics. First of all, we have the former Senate president, and much more important, I'll always think of him as the Senate president because that's how I first met him.
Right.
But he was a former governor of New Jersey, and I will talk about how outstanding he was in that role because he became the governor at a very difficult time. There was a transition going on. Excuse me. Governor Whitman was going down to Washington to take over the EPA. And when 9/11 broke, Don DiFrancesco gave this state superb leadership. In my view, Don DiFrancesco stands out as one of the five most impactful political figures of the past 50 years. I say that because as a Senate president, he was a key to forging policy. And as a governor, he was governing during a very difficult time, but he kept the consensus together. He was both an outstanding leader and an outstanding policy man. And Donnie, I welcome you to our website. And I was glad to see the legislature change the law to retroactively recognize you as not just the former acting governor, but as a former governor. It was well deserved.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And it's good to talk to you because we worked together for a really long time. You were really instrumental in our winning control of the Senate and Assembly in the 1991 election. I know that. And you worked hard on those several years on our behalf, setting policy, getting things done. You were very close to Chuck Italian. I know that. And then fast forward, you were at the federal level, the EPA administrator did a fantastic job. So it's been a pleasure to serve with you all those years.
I can't thank you enough because coming from an individual who accomplished what you accomplished in political life in New Jersey, and it was all for the good. Yeah. It's not only a pleasure to have the comment, but it's a pleasure to have you as a friend.
Thank you.
And Donnie never ages.
Yeah. Well.
He also is a great golfer, and he's a great attorney. So he's everything in one, and delighted to have him here. But the new emerging DiFrancesco is Tracy DiFrancesco. Tracy, the way I'm going to handle this, I'm going to start off with Donnie detailing his career and his emergence, some of his thoughts after all these years. But then after that, we're going to go over to Tracy, who is the main thing about her is not only is she a very canny political person, but she merges that with being a terrific mother. To merge those two aspects is very difficult. You could justify a political prize in itself. But Tracy, we welcome you and thank you to giving us a night here on the Dynamic Political Centrism podcast.
Thank you
for
being here.
Well, let's start off with Donnie. Donnie has lived his whole life. You're still living in Scotch Plains, aren't you?
No, I moved to Somerset County. I'm near Tracy. Yeah, I moved to.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to be near Tracy. Near those boys.
Yeah, that's interesting because I keep thinking about how the DiFrancescos now are eminent personalities in two counties, in Union County, where you were representing senator all those years, and then in Somerset County right now. And
well, Alan, I know you're going to talk about the election this year, but I wanted to give you a quick in history.
Yes, go ahead.
I ran for the Assembly 50 years ago, 1975, and that was 2 years after Watergate wiped us out. If you recall, we got wiped out.
I recall
Watergate.
That.
I think there were 14 members of the Assembly left after that election in 73. So in 75, I was a post-Watergate candidate, and we won a whole bunch of seats back. Tom Kean was the Assembly minority leader. So we went from 14 to 31 in 75. And then, fast forward, I went to the Senate in 79. Tom won in 81, as you know, in a very thin margin. we went in the Senate when Tom won his first race. We got a whole bunch of seats back in the Senate. We went up to 19, so it was 21-19 for a couple of years. But then we still stayed in the minority. But then Tom's reelection, the Assembly, and you were part of that, the Assembly took control of a huge margin of Assembly Republican members after the 85 election. 85 election, and then fast forward, by the time Jim Florio got elected and kind of did all the things he did, you, Italian, Bob Franks, me, Dorsey, we took control of the Senate and Assembly in 91, and we had it for 10 years.
Well, I have to say this about Don. He was an outstanding warrior. I use the word warrior in a positive way for the Republican Party and also for the principles that the party advocated. But at the same time, he was known to be a person who may be a political adversary, but never an enemy. And he forged a working relationship with Jim Florio during those years because after 91, basically the Republicans, until the end of Florio's term in 93, were basically co-governors with Florio. But we got a lot done in those years.
Oh, yeah.
I give you the credit.
No, Chuck Italian was also very instrumental. We were good friends. We worked together.
Right.
We really worked together closely. And like you said, we did quite a bit in those 2 years at Florio, those last 2 years of Jim Florio. Yeah.
And, to this, I became very friendly with Jim Florio a few years prior to his untimely passing.
Yeah.
And we used to have lunch together, and he loved to talk about issues in politics. But he had a very high regard for you, and he spelled that out in his book.
Well, we like you, just as you said, we became very close friends over the years after he was left office, and we were in many venues together, and I liked him a lot. And you're right, he stood on his principles, and it just didn't work out for him in that election. And Christie won and served for 8 years.
Well, I'm going to give you a comment on one of the key Florio issues, because this issue remains a problem that divides the Republican Party. And I don't know how comfortable you'll be with me bringing this up, but it was the gun issue, because you saw clearly ahead in 93 that if the Republicans managed to repeal the gun ban, that it was going to lead to a defeat. I don't think that Christie Whitman could have won if the Republicans were the party that had eliminated the gun ban. So you held the caucus together. It did not pass the Senate. And right. I think everyone owes you a debt.
Yeah, that was the override of the veto. We didn't pass it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but
Christie Whitman. I think you're right about the Christie Whitman election. Yeah, it was because it was very close to begin. In the end, it turned out to be really close. So.
But you did it. You kept us from committing political suicide.
Yeah.
And so I will always give you the credit on that, as with a lot of things. But let me start off asking you a general question. You were involved in so many areas of government, of public policy. Of all the areas that you were involved, what would you say was your proudest accomplishment, both as a Senate president and as a member of the Senate?
Well, of course, we passed. Chuck and I decided to do everything we could to, kind of grow the economy. So we did reduce taxes. We tried to work with the business community quite a bit in dealing with their issues, and I think they were really happy for the 10 years that we were in control with regard to dealing with business. I mean, we lowered the income tax when Christie Whitman came into office. We lowered it a little bit, and so I think over the 10 years, I think the question really is, we wanted to deal with the issues that people really cared about. I mean, yes, the gun issue constantly remained, a big issue to some of the guys in the caucus, but, we tried to work with the NJEA. We created the charter school legislation. We created the open space legislation with Governor Whitman. We dealt with a lot of policy issues that had long been set aside, and we had to deal with affordable housing, as you know, because of the Supreme Court and the Abbott decision, and we did our best to work around those things. So, for example, in the Senate, we created the Council on Affordable Housing to help, help deal with have the communities deal with this in a more rational way rather than in the courts. Now that went by the wayside, but the Abbott decision, of course, benefited the large cities for quite a bit for many years and still does. But then again, we try to soften that to try to help the suburban districts in a whole different way. So there were a lot of policy issues that we dealt with that have been kind of set aside for these last 10 years or so since Chris Christie left office. It was the last 7 years, really. But of course,
I think that was largely a tribute to you, and I'll tell you why. You had a lot of diverse personalities to work with in the Senate.
Wasn't easy.
With Chuck in the Assembly, but you somehow held a consensus together. And in your view, politics was the art of the possible. And that's why we got legislation passed that everyone thought would fail. You would manage to override Florio's veto of the sales tax cut. And that sales tax cut created much more consumer confidence at the time. And that was a key measure. And but you kept the caucuses together. Chuck did his part over in the Assembly, and that was governance at its best.
Right. Well, we had Chuck, and then Jack Collins was the final 6 years of my tenure. But of course, for me, the biggest honor was 2001, 9/11. Of course, as you know, 9/11 was in 2001, and serving as Senate President and Governor at the same time allowed me to really do whatever I could do to recover from that 9/11 issue and deal with the people of New Jersey in the best way I could during that year. It was a very difficult time, and I was very honored to be there.
Well, you deserve the honor, but let me take it one step further. You were both the Senate President and a governor at the same time. That can't happen today because now we have the office of Lieutenant Governor.
Right.
But according to various sources I've read, you were the first person in American history that had a role like that, where you were the leader of a legislative house and at the same time as governor.
Yes, all the other Republican governors around the country were jealous of me because I was controlling the Senate, and they wish they could do that same thing. I heard from a couple of them in that regard. So it was unique.
Well, you made the best of it. Now, I'm going to ask you about a feature of New Jersey government vis-a-vis the Senate that many people complain about, and that is the feature of senatorial courtesy, where a senator can block an appointment basically from his county or his senatorial district, basically by not signing off on it.
Right.
I don't think that is the worst thing in the world, because the Senate is a deliberating body, and it is meant to basically slow the process down, so you're not appointing justices or prosecutors willy-nilly. But having been involved in that process, you were known not to have abused senatorial courtesy. You had a good reputation for that. What's your view of that looking back?
Yeah, it's a tool that the Senate has. It really helps the minority more than it helps the majority, particularly if the governor is making appointments that are inappropriate. The one change I made in senatorial courtesy was that if it was a reappointment of a Superior Court judge or a reappointment of a prosecutor, there was no senatorial courtesy. I eliminated senatorial courtesy on that issue because they already were in these positions and they had careers, and I didn't want one person to block the career of somebody who had already been appointed to these positions. This was the Dorsey issue, the John Dorsey issue, where
I remember that very well,
where he blocked the reappointment of Marianne Espinosa. He lost the election. He lost the election, I think, over that issue. And subsequent to that election is when I made that change and said, one person can't block these reappointments, people who are already in these positions. And so we did make that change. Everybody lived with it. Everybody was fine with it. And I think to this day, it stands. When I first got to the Senate, Alan, and maybe when recall this, when I was a Senate minority leader in 1982, Jerry Cardinal tried to block the reappointment of an appellate division judge, Sylvia Pressler, and the Senate majority eventually overrode his. You can vote to eliminate the senatorial courtesy by a majority vote of the Senate. That's the only time I've ever seen it happen.
What about when Bob Willens was reappointed? Did your statute have an effect on that? Because he was Evidently, I forget. I think it was
Well,
DeMarco
he was renominated by Tom
by
Kean.
Kane.
And then it came to us in the Judiciary Committee, I was on, and we were very upset with his demeanor and his presentation. I'm talking about the Democrats were particularly upset.
Right.
But we decided to release the name for a full vote in the Senate. Most of the Republicans and a few Democrats voted against his reappointment, and John Russo locked the machine at 20-19. And the one holdout was Lee Laskin. And
I
Lee,
knew Lee very well.
like 10 hours later, Lee voted to support Wallens, contrary to what he told me he was going to do. And that's how Wallens got to 21 votes, because several Democrats didn't vote for him. And I think Lee had, I'll be honest with you, Alan, Lee had a lot of pressure on him from the Jewish community.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
And that may have had a role in his losing the election in 1991 to John Adler.
Well, what Lee did, he blocked. He was held up George Norcross's father's appointment to a
Yes.
board, and George Norcross decided to try to take him out, and he did. We won 27 seats, and we lost him.
And that election was the first election where you ever had television, network television,
Yes,
on behalf of the candidate. And I remember when I was at the Republican National Convention in it would have been 2008, and we were at the Humphrey Dome in Minneapolis, and I was walking with Roger Bodman. I said, Roger, this place has political history, because after Kirby Puckett hit his home run that ended that Game 6, that was the first George Norcross initiated network television ad that came on right after
yes,
that.
that's true. And Lee, he took out Lee with all that TV. It's been a fortune. It's been $1 million, I think.
And that was the beginning of the modern media age of
Yes.
politics in New Jersey.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
that really transcended a lot of eras, and that was historical.
Yeah.
Well, Don, you left as governor in 2009, right before. No, you left as
2001.
governor in 2001. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
I left in
I always
January
mix up the
2002.
McGreevy-Corzine.
Right.
Yeah, and since then you've been practicing law, a very influential firm, but you still get involved. I would hope.
Yes. Well, I would never thought that I would still be invited to so many things, and as former governor, and so I still go to a lot of places that people invite me to. I did with Brendan Byrne and Jim Florio. We used to pal around together in a lot of events. Of course, both of them have passed now. So I still am involved. I still try to go to events. I still try to. I go to a lot of local things, and now I try to help Tracy.
Well, you're helping Tracy and you're helping the state. But now over to Tracy. Tracy, I had met your sister Marie before. I had never met you, but you're really front and center now. Let me ask you this, and this is asked in a positive way.
Mhm.
I want to go back again with at the time your father and I were involved. Somerset was considered to be one of the 5 Northwest Quadrant counties. A Republican to win statewide for governor had to win those 5 counties by a margin of at least 100,000 votes. I remember the counties. They were Warren, Hunterdon, Sussex, Somerset, and Morris. Republicans have lost a lot of their clout in Morris County, for example, because there's been demographic changes. But the last few elections in Somerset, the Republicans have lost. And I think most people feel they're going to have to get it back. I'm asking you, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, we've been losing probably for the last 5 or maybe longer, 6 years. I think a couple things happened. Number one, we had to remember the year that Governor Murphy sent everybody in to vote by mail. And
Right.
I think, first of all, the Trump election. So let's just put that out there. That was not well received by Somerset County. He still loses in Somerset County more than he will lose in other places. So the Trump factor was a negative factor for the Republican Party in our county. I think maybe we have a lot of moderates that, don't like Trump. Also, the vote by mail put us in a really bad position, as well as as COVID hit, and there was even more vote by mail with COVID, but vote by mail started heavily before COVID. A lot of New Yorkers moved in, and so it changed a lot of the demographics of the town. So even a town like Watchung for 4 years was Democratic. We had to fight to get that back. So the numbers shifted in the population, and when it comes to Franklin, the vote by mail, I mean, they outdo us by mail like by 10,000 votes. It's unbelievable. So there are a lot more over the years. If you look over the last 10 years, there are a lot more Democrats now than Republicans. I think there are somewhere like 92,000 Democrats, and somewhere Republicans are like 62,000, and then independents are the largest group. So it really depends on how they swing. And in Somerset, they've been swinging, I would say wholly, not in every single town, but in the county as general, they're swinging, left. So it's been very difficult for us.
Well, I'm going to put you on the
overcome.
spot
I'm
because
sorry?
you've inherited a tough situation.
I have. I mean, in the old days, Bridgewater used to cover Franklin, but with the major increase in vote by mail, we can't cover it anymore. The spread is
Well,
too
let me tell you where I give you special credit, you personally. I saw some articles and basically missives you put out at the time when you were elected chair. You have a terrific sense of history. You talked about the days of Luke Gray and John Penn and what they had done for the party. People who forget their history, as George Santayana said, are doomed to repeat it. So you have put in that fact. You're saying, hey, Republicans, get tough. There's no reason we can't win this county back. And I think that you've injected some vigor and vim into that. And I have to compliment you on that. I'll tell you, thanks to your father, I had an interesting situation in Somerset. I was handling education legislation, and he appointed Jack Ewing as the education chair. I actually like Jack. He used to drive me nuts,
Right.
but he's the kind of guy, Jack. He was a pleasure to work with in the sense that I could call him back at 12 midnight, 1 in the morning, and he was all full of vim and vigor and ready to go. And he was really dedicated to the process. And Don, I think he was a key in getting a lot of the school funding legislation passed, and we're in bad need of a formula right now.
Yeah,
We are.
he worked hard at it. He really did, and he took it seriously. And we worked as a team, and he was great. He was great for
He
us.
was. But Tracy, you have this situation now. What do you think? What are some of your early steps in reversing what has been a really serious loss for the Republican Party and losing Somerset?
Yeah.
Even Jack Ciattarelli even lost it in
Yeah.
2021.
I mean, I think one of the issues we face is uniting the county. If we are all not swimming in the same boat and everybody isn't doing their part in pitching in, there's no way we can win. But if everyone gets, I mean, this is the year, right? I mean, we need to switch the governorship. So everyone needs to be hands-on. We've been aggressive in several areas. So one is voter integrity, making sure that we have eyes on the polls and lawyers ready. And so we have recruited many people to work the polls as Republicans, because we've always been lacking in that area. Because yes, we want to have challengers, but finding challengers for every single poll site all day long, it's not that easy. So we're trying it from both ends, not just challengers, but also having more poll workers. So that's the voter integrity piece. And then we're going to have, every county is going to have a lawyer actually. So, they've done a lot of work there. And then we are boots on the ground, really. I mean, we've been heavily and very aggressive last year, and we'll continuing this year to be aggressive in door-to-door efforts. There's no way the Democrats are matching us in that area. I mean, we're in every town. We're going to focus heavily, in some of our more difficult areas in terms of, going door to door. We've unfortunately had a difficult year with candidates. We had a sheriff that dropped out 2 weeks into it. Had to find a new sheriff. Then we had a Democrat get a judgeship, so we had to find a new candidate. And each time you do this, you have to change logos and palm cards and signs. We actually had new signs, and then our surrogate passed away. So it's been a challenging year that way. But I think that people on county elections vote for the party and not so much the candidate, unless we're talking about sheriff, because I think people understand what a sheriff is, but they don't understand what a surrogate is. So we're really banking on pushing Jack everywhere we can, and pushing the sheriff, and then we're asking the Republican towns to do their part so we can spend our time elsewhere. So those are kind of the areas of focus. We've been aggressive. We're trying to raise money. We started out in the red when I took over. We still owe some money here and there, but we're going to manage through.
I think your business skills are going to be a big help. And it seems like the county committee is going to need it to recover from what seemed to be, I don't know if it was malfeasance or misfeasance or whatever, but I know that your predecessor was not popular by the time he left.
Yeah.
So,
I'm still paying off his debts and fines. So,
well, there you go. Now, I'm going to throw something out in general here, because one of the problems the Republican Party has had has been with the women's vote. And my view is it stems from several things. Number one, Trump is not particularly popular with women voters. Excuse me. A subset of that is the abortion issue, where women tend to be much more pro-choice than pro-life. But I think the Democrats are making their own mistake. And let me tell you what I think it is. They keep at all these Democrat fundraisers and seminars, and it was all over the news this past weekend, how the Democratic women who are wealthy, middle class, college educated is the word that is always used, those women are voting for the Democrats. Now, in a way, it's an insult to other women who did not have a chance, working class women who did not have a chance to go to college, who did not have a chance to start their own businesses. They're busy taking care of families. I think that it's possible for the Republicans to present an alternative position that is sympathetic to the situation with working class women, where the Democrats never addressed that. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, a couple years ago, the Democrats were definitely pushing, when the Roe v. Wade got overturned, they were definitely pushing that narrative. Now, in New Jersey, nobody's changing that particular issue. So I think that's sort of gone away as an issue. And right now, I know the Democrats are pushing the issue of save democracy. That's actually their mantra right now. This is what their message is. And I think, once again, if people are paying attention to their message, they have missed the boat on that message. Nobody believes that democracy is a threat right now from the Republicans in New Jersey. So, I mean, we are moderate Republicans for the most part, at least our candidates are. Jack is a moderate. And I think that if we're not focused on the people whose minds we can't change right now, we're focused on the people who are, swing voters, leaving the Democratic Party, or Republicans that we don't know that much about who come out for a presidential year. And I think, our message is about affordability. It's about safety, because safety is a concern right now. It's about immigration. It's still a big issue for people, as long as it's a smart way to do it. And I think those messages resonate more with the people. I think that the Democrats right now don't have a good message, but the question is, can we get our message to the people? And it takes money.
Also, I think by what you're doing, what your father always did, what Jack does very well, is forge a center-right course for the party. If it's too much on the right, you're not gonna have a chance in New Jersey. And I think the Republicans do have an outside chance. And the Republicans have to, in this gubernatorial race, pick off some counties and states where Democrats were expected to win. And I think Somerset, I'm not trying to put a burden on you, but I think with your leadership, there is that chance in Somerset. I'll be following you, and I'll be calling into you. I don't want to bother you, but as we get close to the election, I want to hear your point of view as to where you think things stand, because election night, I'm going to be looking at the Somerset returns.
Yeah, I feel good about it right now for Jack. I mean, obviously he's the most important person on our ticket right now, and that's the person we're going to push the most. And I feel really good about his chances, but we have to still do the work. I mean, the work has to get put in. We're fully focused. We're very dedicated. I have a paid employee, so he works really hard, and we have a team of people. And I think as we battle it out in each town, we're trying to pull in the people who might not. There are people who don't vote. It's unbelievable to me, but there are plenty of people who are eligible to vote and aren't voting, who we know we can get their vote. So we're trying to pull them in and make sure everybody votes. We're going to push early voting and vote by mail.
Well, I think that if anybody's up to that task, you are, because the Republicans, Trump himself made a mistake here where they were poo-pooing vote by mail. Vote by mail is the way to go. And the
Right.
Democrats, like in South Jersey, were really smart the way they played it. I know Steve Askew very well. He's a good friend of mine. He's a Democrat strategist. He said, I can't believe the way you guys blew that issue. He said that should have been a Republican stronghold. And by neglecting that, people like you who come in as leaders now, I don't want to say you're behind the eight ball, but you have to catch up to the gap you've been left.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to get some Republicans to vote by mail or to vote early. They're very distrustful of the system. But I think it's obviously slowly been changing. We had a huge number of people vote early last time, which was great. We literally track the vote by mail. We get weekly reports from the county, and we track who's returning their ballot, and we chase after them during that time. So we make
Well, that's the way to do it. That's exactly the way to do it. Let me ask you something final, and then I'll wrap up the show. I can't thank you and Dawn enough for coming tonight. This has been a great show. But I have read a lot on the affordability issue. There was a poll, I think this was Patrick Murray's poll, that said that in terms of affordability, the Republicans are viewed as being better than the Democrats on the issue of taxes. Taxes are a big component of affordability. But the thing that also gave me, a lot of hope is that the ballots have also shown, and I am known to be, this is full disclosure, one of the most anti-Trump Republicans you can find. However, what the polls have shown is that Phil Murphy is equally as unpopular.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you can get out,
more unpopular.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I think more unpopular.
Yes. So if the message gets out, and Jack had a terrific point the other night. He was on the Power and Politics show, and Jack said that if you get a flat tire tonight, the Democrats are going to blame it on Donald Trump. They blame him for a lot of things. There's enough to blame him on in the federal issues, but they blame him on all kinds of things that are strictly state issues. And he's not responsible for higher property taxes. He's not responsible for overdevelopment in New Jersey. You're a good message person. I think if you get that out, it can really make a difference in Somerset County.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack's message right now is like, look, like your energy prices are high. I mean, my bill was $1,500 for 2 months in a row. So that has nothing to do with Trump. That is the wind and investment that Murphy made that did not pan out. So if he keeps those messages, I think those are really key. And they're
also Murphy was responsible for the the Orzag, the offshore wind, which turned into a disaster.
Yeah, that huge investment. I don't know, what was it, $1 billion investment?
Yes, and we're still waiting for a return on it.
Right, and it's affecting our electricity. So I think if you stick to the kitchen table, like the things that people care about most, that people who aren't interested in politics care about, the pocketbook issues, I think you win.
I agree. Dawn, I have to say that the next generation of DiFrancescos has a great voice in Tracy. So I will be rooting for her.
Thank you. She's a hard worker, and she's got a great vision. So we're very optimistic here in Somerset County. We really are.
Tracy, let me ask you something. You have all the right stuff, not only for political leadership. Are you possibly? You're going to press me on this. Are you possibly up to running for office in the future? I think you'd be a good candidate.
I don't know. It's not really something I think that I'm entertaining at this time. I like to be.
All right. I just thought I'd give you a tough one.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you.
Well, it's been a great show.
Dawn
DiFrancesco as a hero of mine from state government. Tracy represents the new generation that can make the switch and that can get Jack Ciattarelli over the top. I'm Alan Steinberg. As always, we've had a very provocative show tonight on dynamic political centrism, and we will continue to be focusing on the election until Election Day. And just make your plans, get out and vote, or get ballot vote by mail. Thank you very much. That's it for our show. Take care, folks,
Thank
and thank you to the DiFrancescos.
Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of Dynamic Political Centrism. Check back each week for our newest episodes, and you can catch past episodes online via YouTube and Spotify, and please subscribe to our Substack.